Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Thursday. Happy first day of May. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Top progressives have recently taken Bakersfield by storm, hosting several high-profile rallies in the staunchly conservative city.
It brought back a lot of energy that I had lost after the 2024 election.
But a loyal MAGA crowd may still hold the cards in this region. We'll have that story in just a few minutes, but first, these news headlines. Congressman Vince Fong says he supports extending the Trump tax cuts. Fong wrote in an opinion piece in the Washington Times this week that Congress should build on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act established by the president during his first term. Those tax cuts would expire at the end of the year. The House Ways and Means Committee is expected to vote on tax cuts and Trump's broad agenda next week, according to news outlet Politico. Governor Gavin Newsom is pushing for artificial intelligence to play a larger role in California's state government operations. He announced new agreements between the state and several tech companies this week to employ generative AI on work related to highway congestion, traffic safety, and customer service in the tax department. Generative AI refers to systems trained on existing data to create new data.
It's happening at a scale, again, not happening in any other state in the country.
Newsom is calling for it to be fully operational this July. He says the move builds on an executive order he signed in 2023 requiring some state departments to study how they could use AI to work more efficiently. The Legislative Analyst's Office, the research arm of the legislature, released a report just before Newsom's most recent announcement, calling the timeline of the new mandate, quote, aggressive and premature. The report argues that the state is not far enough along in its testing to know if the new technology will be more efficient. Fresno Congressman Jim Costa introduced a bill on Wednesday that aims to help local code enforcement officers catch illegal laboratories. The legislation comes 2 years after the discovery of an unauthorized biological lab in the city of Reedley. The lab flew under the radar for months and contained a number of chemicals and infectious diseases, including malaria and HIV. The bill would provide federal grants to train more code enforcement workers to spot these labs and respond. It would also provide extra support to communities that have faced threats from these illegal labs. A program at California State University Stanislaus that protects endangered species has had its funding suddenly frozen. Now, staff in the program are facing layoffs. As KVPR's Rachel Livenall reports, the program focuses on species that are essential to ecosystems in the San Joaquin Valley.
The funding for the program was administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It primarily supported research and rescue efforts for so-called kid foxes in Kern County. Those are small kinds of foxes, no larger than a house cat, with big brown eyes and skinny snouts and legs. Jamie Rudd is the director of the Endangered Species Recovery Program.
Foxes are sort of that charismatic megafauna and have sort of become the face of like the San Joaquin Valley and the San Joaquin Desert.
At least 5 staffers in the program got layoff notices in March. Rudd says without them, the foxes and other species could die off from the spread of disease and a lack of monitoring.
We just can't let that happen.
Rudd says she doesn't know why the funding was frozen. The program is set to lose most of its staff in May. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livenall.
A push by progressive Senator Bernie Sanders for Medicare for All is getting support from California's own senators. Democrats Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff teamed up with Sanders to reintroduce Medicare for All legislation this week. The so-called Medicare for All Act would provide health care coverage to every American with no premiums, co-payments, or deductibles. The bill has support from 16 U.S. senators and more than 100 members of the House. Workers' rights are front and center today as May Day is celebrated. Traditionally, the 1st of May recognizes workers and the labor movement around the world. Workers in the San Joaquin Valley are planning several actions to support the occasion. Graduate student workers who are part of the union at UC Merced will hold a picnic to discuss new bargaining agreements with the university. Another employee union at the UC will also hold a one-day strike.
The annual KVPR wine tasting is coming Sunday, May 4th. Once again, we'll be gathering at the beautiful Lester Estate on the San Joaquin River for an afternoon of wine and beer sampling, delectable food, and great friends. There will be live music, a silent auction, and a raffle to win $1,500. Complimentary round-trip bus transportation, including lunch, will be provided in Bakersfield and Visalia. Tickets are now on sale at kvpr.org/wine.
And now to our main story. An unlikely city in California is getting newfound attention from some of the country's biggest progressive luminaries. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Silicon Valley Representative Ro Khanna. They have all recently stopped in Bakersfield, a staunchly conservative stronghold in the center of a big blue state. Could the political winds be changing in this region once represented by former Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy? KVPR's Joshua Yeager has this story for us.
No seats were empty during Bernie Sanders' recent rally in Bakersfield. It was part of his Fighting Oligarchy tour, and AOC warmed up the crowd.
Hello, Bakersfield!
The progressive duo took potshots at President Trump and Elon Musk.
Our job is to rally the American people and to defeat Trumpism.
Their message resonated with attendees like Ash Hickey.
I'm here today because I think it's important to defend the rights of everybody who's being marginalized and whose rights are being challenged.
Hickey says she and other Democrats have felt largely abandoned in Kern County, where Trump carried by a whopping 20 points in the last election. But here, she was not alone.
I'm pretty surprised, especially given that we are kind of a red territory, that so many people have shown up, but it's really reassuring.
National GOP priorities like slashing Medicaid have put some rural Republicans in a vulnerable position. And ambitious Democrats who smell blood in the water are taking the fight to these red districts, like Congressman Ro Khanna.
2/3, 67% of folks in this district rely on Medicaid.
Khanna's district may be 200 miles north in the Bay Area, but he found an eager audience in Bakersfield last month. Hundreds who were dissatisfied with their own representatives, including Republican David Valadao. The lawmaker says he won't support major cuts to Medicaid, but some constituents remain skeptical. And Khanna points out that Valadao hasn't held a physical town hall to answer to voters since his re-election.
In America, leaders don't hide from people. Representative Valadao, show up here next weekend.
Valadao also hasn't agreed to an interview with KVPR for more than a month, though in a statement he dismissed these rallies as political stunts. But Democrats like India Buenrostro say they're taking notice of the attention progressive leaders have recently slathered onto Republican Kern County.
It brought back a lot of energy that I had lost after the 2024 election.
Buenrostro is president of the Fresno County Young Democrats. The organization, she says, is growing under Trump 2.0, and visits from top Democrats have galvanized them to confront the administration, she says.
It reminded me that there's still hope, and there's still a fight that we need to conquer.
In an interview, Sanders said there's no time to waste.
I think we have enough votes here to eventually win a congressional race, and certainly to tell the current congressman that it would be totally unacceptable for him to vote for massive tax breaks for billionaires while making cuts to Medicaid.
But the cards are stacked against the left. Valadao has won 5 out of the past 6 congressional elections, supported by voters who are upset with progressive policies they feel have hurt them economically, like cutbacks on oil drilling and farm irrigation.
Welcome to MAGA country!
And a loyal MAGA crowd is determined to keep Kern County red, including Lori Eskew. She's waving a Trump flag outside the Sanders rally.
I don't even know why they would want to come to Kern County. We're a very red dot in the blue state.
But Democrats in this conservative hotspot are feeling differently this time around, and they're pushing to make this red dot a little bit less so. Whether those efforts will pay off in the midterm elections, however, is far from certain in this unpredictable political moment. For KVPR News, I'm Joshua Yeager in Bakersfield.
And Joshua joins me now to talk a little more about these political shifts in Kern County. Hi, Josh.
Hey, Liz.
So you have covered Bakersfield and Kern County for a few years now for KVPR. And as you've reported, have you noticed any sort of changes in people's perceptions or political leanings in that time?
Well, Kern County has always been a solid red patch in our state. President Trump held a rally at the Meadows Field Airport back in 2020 here in Bakersfield, and he was received by a huge, warm crowd at the time. He has a lot of big donors based here. But it seems that recent choices by the administration and the national GOP have inspired passion on the left and caused at least a few on the right to reconsider their political positions. Whether that's enough to result in any big changes at the polls is an open question. Democrats are certainly trying with these recent high-profile rallies, but I think it's fair to say they face an uphill battle.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Kern County is a traditionally conservative area. It's also home to a significant oil and gas industry and has been for many years. How has shifting state politics possibly influenced the area, do you think? And I'm curious if you think that's why Democrats sort of have their sights set there.
Well, you're right. State policies centered on reducing oil production and limiting groundwater overdraft have caused a huge amount of pushback here. Kern County's main economic engines are oil and agriculture, and people here feel the state is unfairly targeting them or singling them out. And those policies are having real consequences in the sense that this is an economically disadvantaged area that's trying to diversify its economy, but is facing major headwinds. Now, on the other hand, Republicans nationally are prioritizing policies that could seemingly hurt this region. A proposal to cut Medicaid by $8 billion is giving a lot of ammunition to local Democrats. They're campaigning hard against Republican David Valadao. He's a Hanford dairyman whose district has the nation's highest Medicaid enrollment rate. And while he's pledged to oppose cuts to the program, that stance could put him at odds with his own party.
Certainly. And did you hear from any other Republican voices in Kern County? Have they discussed any plans to counter some of these more progressive voices that have been coming to town?
Well, I think it's important to emphasize that a lot of Republicans here are still big, ardent supporters of Donald Trump. They see him as a corrective to what they feel are out-of-touch policies advanced by President Biden and Governor Newsom on issues like border security, crime rates, transgender rights, etc. Trump carried Kern County by 20 points, and he was the first president to turn Fresno County red in many years. So clearly his message is resonating with a lot of voters in Central California and beyond.
I appreciated that you included a quote from a Kern County Republican who was outside the Bernie Sanders rally. She seemed to think Bernie Sanders was out of place there and that the region would remain conservative. Can you tell us, how did Trump fare in Kern County in the last election? And do you think there's a chance that moving forward we could see Kern County maybe become more of a purple district with a little more even distribution of Republicans and Democrats?
I think that's the big question right now, and a lot of it depends on Trump himself. The trade war he's starting to wage against China could have major repercussions in the Valley specifically. That overseas market is huge for local growers who send their nuts and citrus there each year. A lot of growers I've spoken to so far tell me they're willing to endure a little pain if it leads to a better deal for Americans in the long run. But that uncertainty is definitely taking a toll on the ag economy here, just as it would any business.
KVPR's Joshua Yeager, thank you for your reporting on this.
Thanks, Liz.
And that's today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you're going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.